Melissa Patton was born on September 9, 1977, to Carl and Norma Patton. Growing up just outside of Atlanta, Georgia, she shared a close bond with her older sister, Tina. Melissa's personality was infectious. She was often described by her loved ones as bubbly, kind, and trusting. After high school, she married her longtime boyfriend, Christopher Wolfenbarger, and the couple relocated to a different part of Atlanta. Their union was blessed with 2 children, a son named Joey and a daughter named Chrissy. Melissa thrived as a devoted wife and mother, embracing her role with joy and dedication. The last known contact Melissa had with her parents occurred on Thanksgiving Day in 1998. During a phone call from Christopher's grandparents' home, she discussed plans for Christmas, leaving her family with the impression that everything was normal. However, when Melissa failed to appear for the holiday and later missed her mother's birthday in February 1999, her parents' worry turned into alarm. Norma decided to take matters into her own hands and traveled to Melissa's home, only to be met with disturbing news from the neighbors. The Wolfenbargers had mysteriously moved away shortly after Christmas, leaving no trace of their whereabouts. Christopher, Melissa's husband, never filed a missing person report for her, nor did he inform her family of her sudden absence. His silence was deafening, especially considering his documented history of domestic violence against Melissa. The fact that he did not reach out to her family further fueled their fears and suspicions. For Norma, Christopher's actions, or lack thereof, raised chilling questions about what had really happened to her daughter. On April 29, 1999, a gruesome discovery was made in a wooded area along Avon Avenue near Hartford Avenue. Inside a garbage bag, discarded in a dumpster, was the severed and bleached head of a woman. Just over a month later, on June 3rd, more dismembered remains belonging to the same woman were found. These remains, carefully packed in black trash bags and discarded in another dumpster, were missing the torso. Investigators noted that the dismemberment appeared to have been done with a saw, suggesting a methodical and brutal disposal of the body. The locations where the remains were found raised particular interest among investigators. They were alarmingly close to a glass company where Christopher Wolfenbarger, Melissa's husband, had been employed in the late 1990s. This connection was more than a coincidence. Christopher had been dismissed from this company after being suspected of stealing a reciprocal saw, a tool that could easily have been used in the dismemberment of the body. The proximity of the dump sites to his former workplace and his history of theft added a chilling layer to the investigation. As authorities dug deeper, the pieces began to fit together in a disturbing way. The careful dismemberment and the bleaching of the head pointed to a perpetrator who had both the tools and the knowledge to carry out such a heinous act. While the identification of the remains had not yet been confirmed, the proximity to Christopher's past workplace and the nature of the crime created a dark cloud of suspicion over him. In 2003, a significant breakthrough emerged in the haunting case of Melissa Patton's disappearance, when authorities successfully identified the dismembered remains as hers through advanced DNA testing. This pivotal identification hinged on a DNA sample from her father, Carl Patton, who had recently been arrested for a string of unrelated crimes. The discovery not only provided a grim closure to Melissa's family, but also unveiled a sinister facet of Carl's past that had long remained hidden. Between 1973 and 1977, Carl was responsible for the slayings of 5 individuals across Georgia, 3 of which were part of the infamous Flint River slayings. These cases had baffled law enforcement for years, remaining unsolved mysteries until the DNA evidence linked Carl to them. As the investigation deepened, Carl pleaded guilty to 4 of these cases in March 2003 and the 5th in May of the same year. His confessions led to a life sentence without the possibility of parole, sealing his fate behind bars and bringing some measure of justice for his victims. Initially, the revelation of Carl's brutal past led investigators to suspect him in the disappearance and slaying of his own daughter, Melissa. However, further scrutiny and evidence established that Carl had been incarcerated well before Melissa vanished, effectively eliminating him as a suspect in her case. This development was both a relief and a new source of anguish for the Patton family, as it meant that the true perpetrator remained at large. With Carl cleared of any involvement, the focus of the investigation shifted back to Christopher Wolfenbarger, Melissa's estranged husband. Despite the red flags, law enforcement struggled to gather the concrete evidence necessary to press charges against him, leaving Christopher as the sole suspect without formal accusations. In 2024, the police, determined to bring closure to the cold case, re-examined the evidence with fresh eyes and new forensic techniques. These developments finally pointed decisively towards Christopher Wolfenbarger, Melissa's estranged husband, as the prime suspect in her slaying. On a hot summer day in August, law enforcement moved swiftly to apprehend Christopher at his home in Griffin, Georgia. The arrest itself was as bizarre as it was telling. Christopher was found desperately trying to evade capture by hiding behind a dryer in his residence. This attempt to conceal himself only reinforced the suspicion that he had something to hide. The officers wasted no time in taking him into custody, marking a pivotal moment in the long and painful journey toward justice for Melissa. On August 6, 2024, Christopher was formally charged with taking the life of Melissa. At the press conference, Detective Shepard, who took over the case several years ago, said Christopher had been a person of interest from the beginning, and that probable cause is how they were able to finally make the arrest. When asked what specifically linked Christopher to the slaying, he said, "I want to protect the integrity of the case going forward, so I cannot disclose certain evidence, but we look at everything when it comes to a cold case." For her family, the arrest brought a bittersweet sense of vindication. The man they had long suspected was finally being held accountable, but it also meant revisiting the trauma of their loss. Norma Patton, Melissa's mother, said, "We have finally made it. He is in custody, and now we just need to get over the last hurdle and get him convicted. You do not know what the final straw was that caused him to do what he did to her. He is the only one who has the real answers." She said her last words to her daughter was, "I love you, and you know where I am if you need me." Norma said the following about her serial perpetrator husband: "He had been devastated when he found out her life had been taken. But he was deliriously happy as soon as he found out Chris had been arrested." Tina, Melissa's sister, said she knew it was Christopher. She said, "From day one, we knew it was Christopher. There was never ever any doubt in our minds who did this. My mom said when she first met him, there was just evil in his eyes." That is so true. For Melissa, she did not deserve what she got. And I hope anybody who is in a domestic violence situation, please get out.